Hello. You're just like covered in pollen from being outside. Hi kids, welcome back to another pizza party. I'm Mrs. Pizza. This is Winnie. And somewhere back there is Cheese. And we are here today to do a recent reads. Why? Because if I wait too long, it's too many books and it's overwhelming. So I like to do this while it's still a little short. And apparently Winnie is just going to be right here, center stage. That's okay. You're the star. You also have sticky stuff on you. I think you might need a bath. All right, we're here to talk about some books, so let's get into it. All right, the first book that we are going to talk about is All Systems Red, and this is the first book in the Murderbot series, which is a sci-fi series following a murderbot. He is a AI type robot that is provided to people as a kind of security system. He's a company owned property that has one job, and that is basically security. And somewhere along the line, Murderbot kind of accidentally got deprogrammed and does not want anyone to realize that he now has free will and a mind of his own. And the best part about him is that he really is just kind of wants to be left alone so he can watch his TV shows. But Murderbot is on a job where he has been sent to a planet with a group of people that are, I believe, doing some sort of like research to see if the planet is inhabitable or can be mined for minerals. They're there to do some sort of research when deeper things might be going on. Murderbot is trying to protect these people. Murderbot would just like to be left alone. I really, really liked this. I thought I would. It's pretty short, and I think most of the books in this series are actually quite short following Murderbot, but I had previously read The Witch King, which is also by the same author, and I really enjoyed the absolute heck out of this, but also I liked the sense of humor that was present in this. The author's sense of humor came through, and so I knew that I would also, if I can get that back without moving every book. Well, now I've made a mess. I knew I was going to like Murderbot. I did like Murderbot, and now I can continue on with the series. Why not? I've already started a million series. Why not start a new sci-fi series as well? The next book I picked up after that, I actually picked up for a reading vlog, and I will link it in the description and on the screen if it'll let me do it, but that was Twilight, and I hated it. I absolutely hated this book. It was terrible, and I hated it. And I actually lost this in my house for a while. Like, I could not find it for the life of me, and I finally found it again. And I'm going to go put this bad boy in a free little library, so maybe someone who would absolutely enjoy it will find it and love it. If this is your teenage years, if this is your childhood, if this is all the nostalgia, I am happy for you. I'm jealous. I wish I could have liked it. I DNF'd it. I thought it was hot garbage. Oh well. The next book I picked up after that was The Warm Hands of Ghosts, and this is by Katherine Arden. This is the newest release from this author who wrote the series The Bear and the Nightingale, which this is a Russian folklore-inspired fantasy, but I was interested to see because I like the writing style. Katherine Arden's writing style feels very folklore, fantasy, fairy tale, if that makes any sense. And I knew The Warm Hands of Ghosts was about war, and so I was interested to see, even though this was going to be another historical fantasy, it's taking place during World War I in, I believe, France and Belgium. That's beside the point. We are following two points of view in this story. We are following Laura, and she is a nurse who was injured during some sort of war explosion, horrible thing that happened, and she has been sent back home. And her brother Freddie is our other point of view, and he is a soldier on the front in Belgium, I believe. I swear it's Belgium, and I'm not going to look it up. I'm just going to go with me thinking it was Belgium. Laura is not only dealing with the trauma of what happened to her that sent her back home, but that when she's back home, something horrible happens there as well. And Laura has started to see things that might not be there, but you don't know if it is her psyche, if it is the post-traumatic stress of being a survivor of war, or if something else is going on. And Freddie has been in another, I want to call them war accidents, but that's not it. It's war. Trauma and horrible stuff is happening. Something horrible has happened to Freddie, and he is now trapped in a pillbox with a soldier who is German. He's from the other side. And these two end up surviving together and then forming a bond and they can't figure out what to do because they can't really go back to their respective sides of the war now that they've kind of formed this bond between the two of them. How can you go and kill people knowing that someone on the other side is someone you now have trauma bonded with? It's a very sad story. I mean, anything that has to do with war is. I thought this was incredibly beautiful. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I think that the fantastical elements in this really added to it. I think that this was really incredibly well done. This was about siblings, about loyalty, about love, about trauma bonding, about the horrors of war, and these people trying their best just to hold it all together during these horrible circumstances. But most of all, it's about finding moments of joy and happiness or love in those times, and also how the things that you experience in war, the traumas, the horrors, the things that you are not only seeing but sometimes actively participating in, can become these ghosts that ride on your back, these horrible things that you can't get over, and how some people seek oblivion in other ways in order to not have to deal with the things they've seen, whether that be alcohol, just kind of the call of oblivion to these people, the wanting to not remember, not feel, not have to deal with all of these weights that have been placed on their shoulders. I like this. I thought it was beautiful. I don't think it's going to be for everyone, but I really enjoyed it. If you like Katherine Arden's writing, I think if you've read The Bear and the Nightingale and really enjoyed it, I don't think this is going to be a miss for you at all. The next book I picked up after that was also in the same reading vlog as Twilight, and that one was The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is something that I actually really enjoyed. I was pleasantly surprised is not a word, because why would I be surprised? I had 0 expectations. I really didn't know much about this other than it was pretty beloved. This is the story of a night circus, a circus that shows up to town unannounced, opens at dusk, closes at dawn, and then one day disappears just as mysteriously. It's full of magic and wonder and sights and smells, and it sounds like a place that I really want to go. But this is also the story of 2 magicians. We have Celia and Marco, and they have been entered into a competition. They are both the pawns that are being used by these 2 much more powerful magicians in order to compete. This competition, this game that they play, has been done many times before, and this is just another iteration of that game. Celia is the competitor for her father, who is a famous magician in his own right, and she is kind of dumped on his doorstep one day, and he's not the best. He's egotistical, he's very famous, he's very power hungry, he's very selfish, and he sees Celia as a piece he can use in this game. And then we have Marco, who is the man in gray's competitor, and he is taken from an orphanage at a very young age and trained in magic. And these 2 people then enter into the night circus and compete against each other in this competition that you are learning about just at the same time as the 2 competitors are. It's very mysterious, but there's also an element of star-crossed love in this as well. I really enjoyed this. I think this definitely felt like an earlier work to an author that I will enjoy as they keep writing, as they keep evolving. There was a lot of really magical elements to this that I think if you are interested in a circus that is magical, then you'll probably like this. The next book I picked up after that was Haunting Adeline, and this is by H.D. Carlton. I picked this up because I felt like maybe I needed a dark romance moment. And this is one of those books that I have seen all over social media. People are just going crazy for Daddy Zane, and they just think that this is the epitome of dark romance. This is the first book in a duet, and I DNF'd the absolute hell out of this. If this is your favorite book, just go ahead until you see me talk about the next book. Just don't. I love you too much to say this to your face. So I care about you. Don't listen to me trash your favorite book. All right. If you're still here, this was garbage. This is such garbage. It's not good. It's so boring. This was so boring, and it made 0 sense. This is the story of Adeline, and she has this stalker that basically sees her one day. Adeline writes books. I don't even remember what kind of books she writes, but she's an author. She's at this book signing one day, and this guy who's a stalker sees her, and he's like, you are it for me. And so then he starts stalking her. She moves into this house that used to belong to her grandmother, and the stalker guy keeps showing up, and she eventually ends up in a relationship with the stalker guy. But he makes zero sense because his whole thing is he is stalking her. He is dominant. He's dark and mysterious. I think he has 2 different color eyes, or a scar or something. I don't remember. He's super dark and scary, but like also super hot. His character makes zero sense because we're supposed to believe that he's like this dark, scary stalker guy, but also he like saves children from pedophile rings. He makes zero sense because his motivations are very like saving people who have been stalked and kidnapped and abducted, but he also likes to like stalk and slightly abduct and do things against Adeline's will, but I guess she's into it, so that's okay. He just didn't make sense, guys. I'm sorry. He made zero sense. Adeline also didn't make much sense because she would like not be into it, but then she was into it, but yet like I was bored. It was one of those ones where it felt like everything was happening was like, ooh, wouldn't that be like super sexy and dark and like emo goth super stalkery if I did this? Instead of things happening that were dark that made sense because of how the characters' personalities were or like past traumas or their histories, it was boring. And it was supposed to be dark and spooky, and I don't know how something can be dark, spooky, sexy, and boring at the same time, so I DNF'd it. I made it pretty far. I think it was like at the 70% mark when I gave up on this mess because I was bored. And then sex would happen, and then I was bored, and then I was still kind of bored when the sex was happening. How about that? The end. Again, if that was your favorite book, I'm sorry I didn't like it. I'm glad you liked it. I'm really happy for you that you enjoyed it. I thought it was boring, but not every book is for every person. But I was still feeling like I wanted a dark romance. I hadn't scratched that itch after having to DNF that book. It just wasn't for me. So I decided to pick up another dark romance that I had seen circulating. I had heard a lot of praise for, and that was The Butcher and the Blackbird. And this is by Brynne Weaver. This book actually was one of those ones where not only was it circling me on social media, but in my real life, people that I know that read were coming in and they're like, have you read this book? And everyone kept being like, I can't say that it's good, but man, was I entertained. And that's exactly this book I read in 24 hours. I just flew through this. And I don't think it was good. Like, I think it was popcorn good. This was like wild and crazy and entertaining, and I ate it up. This is another dark romance, but in this story, we are following 2 characters. What were their names? Sloane and Rowan. Sloane is a serial killer. And in the opening of this book, she has accidentally gotten herself stuck when another serial killer named Rowan shows up and he helps her escape her situation. And these 2 kind of develop a friendship, admiration for each other. They both come from traumatic pasts. In a like Dexter the TV show type way, have turned to like vigilante serial killing in order to scratch that dark itch that they have. But these 2 now know each other, start kind of this fun game. It's not fun. Serial killing is not fun. There's a game element to this as well, where they're meeting up to try and catch these bad serial killers. There's sexy things that happen between these 2. They're kind of perfect for each other. Check your trigger warnings before you go into this. There is something that almost put me off this book, though, when I was looking at the trigger warnings, when I was reading kind of reviews on Goodreads, and one is accidental cannibalism. But I like wrote this sentence, and I can't believe I'm going to say this also on the internet. It's not that bad. It works in the story. It makes sense in the story. And there's a lot of like funny moments that happen in here as well. It's 2 serial killers that fall in love. That being said, the next 2 books in this story, I believe, are going to be following Rowan's brothers. And I am super interested in reading those romances as well. This was fun. I enjoyed it. Again, it's not good. It was a good time, and I enjoyed the absolute hell out of it. If you're looking for serial killer, romance, dark, but also like ridiculous and entertaining, put her in the Blackbird. The next book I picked up after that was What Feasts at Night, and I also read this in a reading vlog. This is by T. Kingfisher and is the follow-up to What Moves the Dead. This is a retelling of the fall of the House of Usher and is a super short and quick little horror read. What Feasts at Night is the follow-up where we are still following our main character, Alex. They are a sworn soldier. In the first book, they traveled to the Usher estate because one of their friends, Madeline Usher, is dying, and so their presence is requested because, hey, I'm gonna die soon. And then spooky things happen. In What Feasts at Night, Alex is traveling to a family home that is a hunting lodge in a very remote area. There's a small town nearby, but other than that, this hunting lodge out in the woods, nothing else around. This whole story is about Alex traveling to this hunting lodge and something creepy is happening. And Alex just has the worst luck, it seems, because they keep showing up at these houses where something creepy is going on and the mystery of the creepy slowly unravels. I will say this wasn't as successful for me as What Moves the Dead. I think I enjoy Alex as a character. I think that I will continue reading about Alex if this series continues on, but I didn't feel the anxiety and the fear as much as I did in the first one. I feel like they were able to plant the seeds of something creepy happening early on in the first book, and it slowly kind of builds and builds, where in this book, I didn't feel creeped out, not successfully at all for me. That being said, the first book has creepy mushroom, mold, damp things happening, and that freaks me out. I do not like damp things. I do not like mold. That could be the only thing going on. They could literally just be talking about this damp house with peeling wallpaper and black mold on the walls, and I would be completely freaked out. Whereas that is not the atmosphere, although we are in a creepy, kind of secluded, dusty, infrequently used hunting lodge. There's dust and spider webs and dark spaces. The setting didn't work as well for me, and that is just an absolutely personal thing. I enjoy T. Kingfisher books. I like their cozy horror, their cozy darkness, and so it was an easy, quick read. And I'm glad I read it. And the last book we are going to talk about is Everlong, and this is by Raeta. This is available on Kindle Unlimited, and this is the second book that I have picked up by this author. The first book, Peaches and Honey, which I thoroughly enjoyed, so I picked up this book. I think this is an earlier book from this author, and you can tell a little bit with the writing, but I still really, really enjoyed this. This is the story of Lily, and Lily sits on her park bench every night in the dark, looking at the stars. Her only friends are the stars and her bench, and she writes stories about the things she sees in the park. She gives everything a backstory. She basically sits down and she'll see a toy that was left at the park, and she'll write a story about the child who this toy belonged to and their life. She'll see an empty Coke can and she'll talk about the date that these people went on and they drank this soda together. She kind of creates these backstories for all of the objects she encounters in the park. But she's been coming to this park as long as she can remember. She's always been alone. She's always been here. She's always sat at this bench. And one night, a young man named Sam walks by and he introduces himself to Lily and sits down and talks to her. And this is the first time that Lily has talked to a person in a very long time. And these two slowly slip into a friendship that turns into something more. I don't want to give away what's going on. Just know that Lily is different. These two characters are soulmates. They are soulmates, but they're not soulmates in the fated mate kind of fantasy type way. They're soulmates in that they fill in the dark spaces for each other, that they care for each other, that they just kind of are the perfect person to create a safe home for the other. But there's complications because of who Lily is and why she sits on this park bench every night. I will say this was an incredibly slow burn. Incredibly slow burn. And even though there is an eventual coming together of these characters, it takes a long time to get there, and this is not super spicy. If you need there to be super spicy scenes, that is not this book. This is about sitting in the lives of these two characters and watching them slowly make emotional connection that starts off as friendship and just keeps building and building to something more. There are dark forces kind of on the outside of this relationship that cause the conflict, but this is a very slow story, just sitting writing in the lives of these characters. It's interesting because it does feel like this author created two characters that they absolutely loved and they just wanted to spend time with them. And I too just wanted to spend time with Lily and Sam. I absolutely sobbed while reading this book. And it's something that I felt like the author did not take any easy outs. They followed the realistic path of this relationship and where it would go, but that doesn't mean it's any less heartbreaking. I really liked this. I think that there was still some points in this that needed some polishing, but I'm willing to forgive that. 1, because it was an earlier work, and 2, because it was just so impactful. 3, because it's available on Kindle Unlimited, and sometimes I feel like this book probably didn't see the kind of editing that a traditionally published book would, and it was still so well done and so impactful. I am looking forward to reading more from this author. I feel like they're this person that other people knew about that I'm just finding out about, and they have really, really emotional and slow burn romance stories. This was great. This is not a straightforward contemporary romance. This is definitely more of a paranormal romance, slow burn situation. But I'm not giving you more than that because I feel like even though you'll figure out what's going on pretty early, it's fun to slowly figure out what's going on and to be coming up with theories in the beginning about who these people are. But that, kids, is where we are going to end this recent reads because 8 is plenty and I think my voice is going to go soon. Also, the dogs are both passed out. That literally never happens. Where's Winnie? Winnie? Well, you're cheese. Hi. That's where we're going to end it. That's where we're going to call it. It's a rainy day and I'm ready to start reading. I hope you're reading good books out there, wherever you are. I hope that you pick up some of these books and we can chit chat about it. If you had fun hanging out with me and the dogs, please subscribe and I'll see you next time.